Acts chapter 12. All right, we took some prayer requests. Acts 12, we looked at these names last week. Rhoda. I looked it up, what Rhoda means. Rhoda meant a rose. Susanna, a lily. We looked up just regular names. Daisy. Hadasha was a myrtle. Tamar is a palm tree. The name violet, lily, jasmine is a shrub. Camellia is a flowering plant. Iris, that's not a very popular name today, but obviously that's a flower. Hazel is a tree. Holly, and I told you I knew a guy named Holly Belcher, and you didn't mess with him. He was 6.5 feet tall, and he was a Marine sergeant,
That's Sue, actually.
Yeah, that's my name is Sue. All right, chrysanthemum.
Easy for you to say.
And fern. I've heard of that, and now I've never heard of a pansy. All right, and then we went to verse 15, and they said unto her, Thou art mad, meaning you're insane. And then in verse 15, it is his angel, assuming that he was, I would assume they thought maybe he was dead. Every angel of the Bible is a wingless male. Now, I assume you have notes. The notes are in the back. And Hebrews 1:14. Now listen, there's always the first time you hear a verse. If you're just getting started. And quote Hebrews 1:14. Anybody? Are they not all? Now I know that's not the whole verse, but are they not all? Just speaking of angels, are they not all?
Angels underwear.
No, that's Hebrews 13. Ministering what? Spirits. Yes, okay. Are they not all ministering spirits? Why don't we go ahead and turn there? We could look up that angels unawares too. Hebrews 1:14. Hebrews 1:14. Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation? So they are at God's disposal to do his bidding and minister to the saints. Now, I said Hebrews 13 on entertaining angels unawares. Let's see if I'm accurate. Okay, it is Hebrews 13, verse 2. Verse 1 is, Let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. And then the way we learn, obviously, is repetition. And I don't know what you do with your time, but most people in spending their time is spent a lot in repetition, right? Those that accomplish nothing repeat every day nothing. They get nothing done. And they repeat that. But those that get something done, it's to accomplish something, it's a steady repetition. So we exercise our minds in these verses. Most likely they prayed not. We don't know what they were praying in Acts 12. We really don't know. They were praying. Most likely they prayed not that Peter would be released. Now they could have been praying for that. But that Peter would not renounce his faith in Christ, as Peter did prior to this, right, when he denied Christ 3 times. They saw that James was killed. They probably expected Peter to be killed too. the continued knocking. Verse 16, but Peter continued knocking. Matthew 7:7. That is the sermon what? Sermon on the Mount. What is the one where he is overlooking the temple and he's with Peter, James, John, and what's the fourth apostle that was there? Peter, James, John, and anybody know who else was there? I'm pretty sure there was a fourth one there. Names them by name. Andrew. And that's called, what sermon is that called? The something discourse.
Olivet Discourse.
The Olivet Discourse. That's called the Olivet Discourse. Sermon on the Mount is Matthew 5, 6, and 7. In Matthew 8, immediately as he comes down from the mountaintop, he meets, who does he meet in Matthew 8, verse 1? He comes off the mountain, who does he first meet? Anybody recall? Just repetition. Now, we're just exercising our minds. He meets the leprous man. If thou wilt, thou canst. If you want to heal me, you can. He meets the leprous man, and he said, I will. And he touches him. All right, let's go to Matthew 7. I would assume it's dealing with prayer here. He's dealing with prayer. He's dealing with the offering as far as giving of alms. In Matthew 7, I believe, I think it is. Matthew 7. Oh no, Matthew 6 is that. Matthew 7, verse 7. Ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. So continue knocking is repeatedly persistent. Most people, it's like in any competition. If you're in competition against somebody, well, let's say it's one-on-one, and let's say you're exhausted or you're very tired. What's one thing that can encourage you to go on? You're in, let's say you're a boxer and you are dog tired, and I mean you're really in good shape, and you're in the 8th round and you're pounding and you feel like, man, I'm about ready to go down. Well, what can encourage you to go on?
Hear people betting on you.
Well,
The people in your corner. The people in your corner.
Say that again. Oh, being a winner.
The people in your corner. Money.
Money. What?
People in your corner.
No. If you're tired, the guy that you're fighting against, he's just as tired. And the idea is to be persistent. Is you're almost ready to win and you quit. The guy hopes you quit before he quits.
Yeah, you hope the other guy's in the same shape you are or worse.
Right. In other words, you're on the verge, and instead of becoming successful, you quit before you are. If you just hung in there just a little longer, continued knocking, astonished. They were astonished. Now, when we have prayer meeting here, verse 16, it says astonished. We have prayer meeting on Wednesday night. We should not be astonished when prayers are answered. Probably the prayer in verse 12 was not the prayer of Peter's release. They probably prayed for him not to cave. But they were astonished in reading some about this. Why should they be astonished if their prayers were answered? Right? We pray for things, but we shouldn't be astonished if they're answered. Right? We should pray expecting. All right, in verse 17, but he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, go show these things unto James and to the brethren. And he departed and went to another place. So he recounts his miraculous escape. He tells them what had happened. All right, verses 18 and 19. As soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Peter. They're nervous. And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judæa to Cæsarea in their abode. So there was a consequences if you failed in your duties. If you fail in your duties today, now this was life for life, but if you failed in your duties today, things are pretty lax today. If 100 years ago, if you failed in your duties, what would happen to you?
Find another job.
You're unemployed. You're fired. What put a stop to a lot of that?
The union?
Unions would be one. Now, my dad worked when unions were not around. There's always been these trade unions for hundreds of years, but he worked when there weren't high volume of unions. My dad said that, I think they were at Continental Carbon. Anybody know what Continental Carbon is?
Union Carbide and now Graftec.
Union Carbide and what now?
Graftec.
Graft.
G-A-R-A-F.
Did they, okay, graphite, meaning graphite. Did they sell that? Union Carbide? Because I thought when that accident happened in India, I thought they were going to try to get the CEO on criminal charges of what took place in India.
All I know is the building that used to be Union Carbide on Snow Road there now by 130th is now Graftec, and there's a historical marker that talks about Continental Carbon and Cleveland Carbon and Union Carbide.
Well, he was there when it was Continental Carbon. I'm pretty sure this is the story. He's there at Continental Carbon. A friend of his who worked over here with us at the end of his life, and we're going back to the 1920s, is if the boss didn't like you, where would you find yourself?
Outside looking in.
Outside looking in. And then what was the unemployment line looking like on taking applications then at that time at Continental Carbon? If you could lose your job like that, the line was long trying to get in.
Oh, sure.
So the guys are applying, trying to get in, and the fellow's name was Joe Wersner, was my father's friend. My dad and this fellow said that if you just look wrong, if he didn't like the way you looked, you were out the door. And they would be the owner would be walking through firing men as they would go. As he's walking to his office, you're out of here, you're out of here. And that's how they treated people. And so he said, Joe Wersner said he was in the stock room working, and one of the managers was watching him through the shelves, and he's working away, and he says, "Oh, I see you there, Mr. So-and-so." He knew he was watching him, and his back was to him, and he said, "Oh, I know you're watching me, but if you did not guard your prisoner, and they escaped, it was their life, your life for their life." Let's go ahead and look these up. Acts 16, verse 27. Now, just be thankful back then you didn't die. If you failed at your job. But this job was, you were to keep these people. Verse 27, keeper of the prison. This is the Philippian jailer when he had gotten saved. Keeper of the prison, awakening out of his sleep, and seeing the prison doors open, he drew out his sword and would have killed himself, supposing that the prisoners had been fled. So he was willing to kill himself over this. Why would he, jumping to a conclusion here, why would he have been willing to kill himself?
Keep from being killed.
Yeah, but why? If he was going to die anyway. Probably if he was going to be killed at the hands of those that were going to kill him, that he would have suffered more. I think that's a pretty logical conclusion. Matthew 28. when Jesus was not found in the tomb. 11 through 15. Now, when they were going, behold, some of the watch came into the city, and showed unto the chief priests all the things that were done. And when they were assembled with the elders and take counsel, they gave large money unto the soldiers, saying, Say ye, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we slept. Now that certainly is not life for life. And if this come to the governor's ears, we will persuade him and secure you. So they took the money and did as they were taught. And this saying is commonly reported among the Jews unto this day. Now they would have been secured, and probably in the end they would have been killed over it. And if you were offered the money, they took the bribe. They took the bribe. All right. Now in this 1 Kings 20, that's another example. Death for those charged with such a responsibility. 1 Kings 20. What story is going on there? And anybody recall what story that is? 1 Kings 20. That's all right. If you don't recall, that's all right. There was a story, remember, and the king arrives. What king is it? And he said, it's basically your life for his life. You remember the king that said that? No, it's Ahab. I'm pretty sure it's Ahab. Then what happened in the next battle with Ahab? He died. All right, so let's go to 1 Kings 20. 1 Kings 20. (35 through 43). And a certain man of the sons of the prophets said unto his neighbor in the word of the Lord, Smite me, I pray thee. And the man refused to smite him. And then said he unto him, Because thou hast not obeyed the voice of the Lord, behold, as soon as thou art departed from me, a lion shall slay thee. And as soon as he was departed from him, a lion found him and slew him. Then he found another man, and said, Smite me, I pray thee. And the man smote him, so that in smiting he wounded him. So the prophet departed, waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with ashes upon his face. And as the king passed by, he cried unto the king, and he said, Thy servant went out into the midst of the battle, and behold, a man turned aside, and brought a man unto me, and said, Keep this man. If by any means he is missing, then shall thy life be for his life, or else thou shalt pay a talent of silver. Now they could have been bought off, but life for life. And as thy servant was busy here, obviously they're lying. He's lying. And as the servant was busy here and there, he was gone. And the king of Israel said unto him, So shall thy judgment be, thyself hast decided. In other words, out of your own mouth judgment is made. And he hasted, took the ashes away from his face. The king of Israel discerned him that he was of the prophets. And he said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Because thou hast let go out of thy hand a man whom I appointed to utter destruction, Ahab did not kill him. Therefore thy life shall go for his life, and thy people for his people. And the king of Israel went to his house having displeased, and came to Samaria. So the practice of life for life was done back then. All right, so that's pretty cruel, folks. I think that's pretty cruel. Acts chapter 12. Now, I guess the reason I ask questions hoping that you know the answer is I was in a situation once where I was amongst people that had been saved for a long, long time and have been under tutelage for a long time. And I asked, well, where's the Ten Commandments in the Bible? I forget what the lesson was. I had an opportunity to teach, but I had some real eye-openers. They had no idea. They had no, it is in the Bible, right? Well, wouldn't you like to think that you could find, where are the Ten Commandments? Exodus what?
Exodus 20.
20. Where, all right, now, let's go further. Where else is the Ten Commandments given?
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, okay? 5 or 6, chapters 5 and 6. Let's go another step. Where are the Ten Commandments?
In the heart of the
It
believer.
states it, where they are in the New Testament.
In the heart of the believer.
In the heart of the believer. Where is that? You're right. Yes, well, where is that? Romans chapter 2. Romans chapter 2. Showing the law already written in the heart. All right? So we could say the Ten Commandments are in 3 places. Where would the 4th place be? I would have to say they're in heaven. Because whatever's going on here is a shadow of things going on there. I would jump to that conclusion. All right, now that was one question. Yes, sir.
Do you know which chapter of the Bible Exodus 20 is?
What chapter?
Number 70.
Oh, number 70. Yeah, you brought that up to me before.
10
Why
times
is that
7.
Huh?
10 times 7.
Oh, okay, perfection. Is that what you're driving at? I don't know what you're driving at.
The law times 7.
Pardon?
10 Commandments.
The law times 70.
The 10 Commandments are...
All right, now my next question was, where is the Passover? Exodus 12. Just with those 2 answers, Exodus 20 and Exodus 12, you know more than most people that have been going to church for 40 years. It was dumbfounding. Now I know it's early in the morning, we could think of other things, yes. And the older we get, we do tend to forget, but yes.
Every so often on the quiz show of Jeopardy, they'll have a category of Bible questions. You'd be surprised.
How ignorant or how much?
Ignorant.
Oh, how ignorant people are.
You know,
Well, most people, lost and or saved, they think they have a general knowledge of something. You know, I know a lot. I'm pretty good at it. And then when it's finally nailed down, they find out that they don't. Now, when I went to take piano lessons, I was 19, and my mother said, go learn chording. That's the quick and the easiest way. So I went and I found the right teacher, got a good teacher. Fred Recco was his name. And he said, well, first let's show me what you can do. Show me what you can do already. I could play a little bit. I mean, I was stumbling. And I was not, basically, I didn't know half of what I thought I knew. And by the time that we were done learning or showing him what I did know, he actually laughed out loud. He laughed out loud. I said, yeah, I guess that's pretty pathetic. And then from there, he took me from that spot, then showed me how to do it. And then from there, it was shake, rattle, and roll within a couple of months. And he could teach it, and teach it well. But the same is true with the Bible. People generally think they have a pretty good knowledge of it, when in the end they don't. In the end they don't. Anyway, so what is the point then of Sunday school? It is school. All right, so we say our 3-point outline for Sunday school, Sunday morning preaching, and Sunday evening. Sunday school is for the head. Sunday preaching is for the heart, and Sunday evening is for the
Feet.
well, close, but let's keep the alliteration. The head, the heart, and you got to have an H word. The hands. Technically, what you said, the feet. Well, isn't that a good outline? I think that's a really good outline, right?
Sunday-
The head, the heart, and the hands.
Sunday school is a school you never graduate from.
And it's a school you'd never really graduate from.
You can drop out, but you can't graduate.
All right, verses 20 through 23. Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon. But they came with one accord to him, and having made Blastus, the king's chamberlain, their friend, desiring peace, because their country was nourished by the king's country. In other words, they are, let's go ahead and read this. Here, he lives at Cæsarea. Tyre and Sidon received food. If we're going to rephrase or reaccount, what does verse 20 mean through 23? They received food from the king's country, but Herod is displeased with the behavior of Tyre and Sidon. So Herod breaks off their food supply. What happens when food supply is cut off? When food supply is cut off, they riot in the streets. To get the food, you'll almost do anything. Right? You'll almost do anything. So Tyre and Sidon desire peace. They desire peace and bribe Blastus, who's close to the king. They find the guy who's close to the king. They bribe him. They got to be persuaded. We need this food. So there is a carnal, a historical thing that's taking place there. Luke 12:58 is probably a illustration of that desiring peace. When thou goest with thine adversary to the magistrate, as thou art in the way, give diligence that thou mayest be delivered from him, lest he hale thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and the officer cast thee into prison. So they want to reestablish peace so they can get this food. So they get the food. When these hurricanes come through, what do they do? What do people, before the hurricane's on its way, what do? They stock up. So you go to Stop and Shop, or what's that, Giant Eagle, and you Save-A-Lot? Save-A-Lot? You go to Save-A-Lot. What's on the west side? Save-A-Lot? Is Giant Eagle over there?
Well,
Giant Eagle's over there. Mark's, Save-A-Lot.
Acme.
Do we have an Acme over here?
There's only one Acme in Cuyahoga County, and it's
Okay, so we don't have one over here.
yeah.
But they go to, Y2K was that way. They stripped the shelves. And I went shopping over at Giant Eagle in January after Y2K. That was, the whole thing was a big farce. And so I went up there, and there were no sales, nobody in the parking lot, because everybody stocked up on the food. They said, well, they already bought the food for at least a month. And so business was slow for about a month after that. But other than food, what do they buy there? Water. How dumb is that? To me, it's the dumbest thing. Where can you get water? I mean, come on, us that are from the 50s, where do you get the water?
Well, you get it out of the spigot, but if your municipal water supply gets ruined by a hurricane, you need...
Yeah, but it's before, they get the water when? Before the hurricane comes. So just take your empty jugs and fill up the water.
You could do it that way.
Before the hurricane comes, because they're going to the store to buy the water. And us that had drank that water that came out of the spigot, unless young people think we're weird, I don't know, did the water affect you? We all drank the water. We all drank it. Us kids, we all drank out of the same cup.
Yeah.
We had the tumbler. I remember ours was aluminum. And it was anodized aluminum. We had different color ones. It was El Cheapo. I mean, this anodized aluminum.
Oh, I remember that.
You're drinking that aluminum. I probably had Alzheimer's from it. And I remember, I would think, my sister just drank right there, so I would turn it.
And it wasn't a paint, but the color coating would wear off where your mouth was.
It would wear off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't you.
Yeah.
Probably lead paint.
Right. Okay, so as a result, they make this peace. A celebration is planned that Herod is the speaker, with the people from Tyre and Sidon are going to be present. We're going to give this speech, and those that were offended, the peace was made, and he's going to give this speech. Verse 22, and the people gave a shout, saying, it is the voice of a God and not of a man. Now, whether or not they meant it or not, they're just buttering them up. Defying Roman rulers was common. Deifying them. God will not share the glory due God. He just will not do that. Numbers 20. Leviticus, Numbers. Now, I have read where annually they would go through the streets in Rome, and if you did bow the knee and say Caesar is God, what would happen to you? You just stay down there and off with your head. If you didn't do that. Now that's what you read or what you hear. Now how true that is, I wouldn't want to go back there and live that and find out that's true or not. All right, Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock, and he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels, must we, here's an example, must we fetch you water out of this rock? Moses lifted up his hand with his rod, he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly. Congregation drank, and their beasts also. In other words, instead of giving God the glory, obviously he was to speak to the rock, not to smite the rock twice. And the teaching really is when you smite the rock the first time, Jesus is crucified one time. You never crucify him again. After he is dead, buried, and rose again from the dead, we no longer smite the rock, we speak to the rock. Prayer. We could go there, and that's the general teaching. But here, if you want to go this route, he would say they were going to take the glory. They were going to take the glory for themselves. And it cost Moses entrance into the promised land. All right, he's not going to share his glory with another. All right, going back to verse 21. Herod prepares for the event. He wears royal apparel. He sits upon a throne, and he makes an oration. Acts 24, verse 1. 24, verse 1. And after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, descended with the elders, and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. So the orator is the one that is making the presentation. And the way the presentation is made is important. And so I think about that. I am the pastor, I am to preach, and my oration, the way I present it, is important. And now, of all the presidents that I've known, I did not know Eisenhower. I was too little for that. JFK, I don't remember, I remember JFK, but I don't remember, ask not what you could do for your country, ask what the country could do for you. I don't remember any of that. I was probably 12 years old or so. I don't remember that, or I was 10. And then, but after that, what's after that? Johnson?
Johnson.
I remember Johnson, then Nixon. What's the guy that was not elected? Ford. Carter. Reagan. Bush. Then Clinton, then Bush, and then Obama, and now. That's 10.
Well, when you were born, Truman was still president.
And Truman, yeah, and I definitely don't remember that.
Yeah.
And he used to sneak away from the White House, now think of that. They said he would sneak away from the White House and elude the Secret Service just so he could go for a walk.
Oh, yeah.
Alone, just him, out in the street.
And they say he would walk so quick that reporters actually had to run to keep up with him when he took his morning walk.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But he would elude the Secret Service. Well, there's 10 of them. Now, of all those 10, I know people are going to disagree because you already have a prejudgment, prejudiced. You prejudge because you like a person over another. But I will have to say this, the best of the lot, I thought was Ronald Reagan. That's my opinion. I know that's an opinion. But he could outshine them all. And did he have a writer, or did he write himself, or did he have both?
As far as speech writing?
Yeah.
Both. I read
I think he had both.
Both, yeah.
But he did some of this himself, so, and he had experience, he was a politician before that, so he had a lot of experience with that, and so on. So the oration is also, presentation is very important. Those that they say were great, I mean, Clinton never impressed, Clinton and Obama never once impressed me. I just, but you could say, well, that's your opinion, which is true. Must we be reminded of Luke 2:14? Glory to God in the highest. That's the quote out of there. Isn't it what the angel comes and says? Glory to who? Glory to God in the highest. We are to glorify God. Verse 22. People gave a shout saying it is the voice of a God and not of a man. Herod would have been spared if he had rebuked the audience, if he did not receive it. Instead, he was flattered by his audience. All right, they get flattered to continue on in their folly. By the way, what is the fairy tale, the flattering of the king? And he goes on and on and on in his folly until there's a little boy or a little girl that stands up in the parade and yeah, say it, sister. Yeah, it's okay. I didn't know what it's called, but is it a boy or a girl?
The emperor's new clothes.
The emperor's new clothes, and they say the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
But they keep flattering him, and he keeps going on in this folly.
Yeah.
The emperor has no clothes. Is it a little boy or a little girl? It's a girl? It's a little girl. Who else is concerned about clothes than the girls, right? It's a little girl, right? All right, highest church office. We're going to stop here. Highest church office is 1 Timothy 3:1. Let's turn there. 1 Timothy 3:1. This is a true saying. If a man desire the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. So the idea here is it is a bishop. The title that is given Christ in 1 Peter 2:25, he is the bishop. 1 Peter 2:25, excuse me. For ye were as sheep going astray, and are now returned unto the shepherd and bishop of your souls. Yet the Pope is called the Archbishop. He's called the Archbishop, meaning he's in charge of all the bishops. Right? I mean, there's a bishop here in Cleveland. What kind of a church usually calls their people elders and or bishops? And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not complaining. There's everything right with it.
Some of the Methodists, I think.
Methodists, black churches tend to do that. They'll call them bishop so-and-so, and you know, they tend to do, those are all proper terms to use. But saying archbishop is blasphemous. It should not happen. So we will start here next week. And remember, it's here a little, there a little. Here a little, there a little. So it's like a music lesson. You come and you get a lesson. And you perform of what you were supposed. Now, in this case, you're not giving something to go work on at home. Is you come and just receive it. This is the lesson. And then, but when you do music, you practice what you've been given. You perform it in front of your teacher, and then the teacher gives you something more advanced to further you along. You don't learn. If you're going to do the piano, the last person you want to learn is a guy like Chopin. I mean, he reinvented the piano. If you start there, I would never even finish there. He is highly advanced. So we always do a little bit. We build, right? Building on your most precious faith. Isn't that the second last verse in Jude? Building on your most precious. We build on this faith. Father, bless now the preaching to follow in Christ's name. Amen.